Hello everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us for this live presentation. Today's topic will be tackle your compliance requirements with Syskit Trace. My name is Ivan and I'm a sales manager here at Syskit. And here with me is my dear colleague Hrvoje, who will be showing you a demo in just a moment. Many of you already knows us as a company, but for those who don't, let me introduce you to Syskit. Syskit is a software development company that was founded more than 10 years ago. We developed products for Office 365 governance, security, and documentation, as well as administration and monitoring solutions for SharePoint on-prem. We currently have more than 3,000 customers in over 75 countries worldwide, and some of them are very famous names, as you can see on our slide. We currently have 5 products, including our award-winning SP Docket for on-prem documentation, Syskit Point for Office 365 governance and security, and Syskit Trace for Office 365 documentation and comparison. Before we start, just a few housekeeping rules. All registrants will receive a recording of the session within a few days. After Hrvoje's presentation and Syskit Trace demo, we will have a Q&A session where you can ask any questions that you might have. Please feel free to use the Q&A function on the top right of the screen to ask your questions throughout the session, and remember folks, don't be shy. I will now turn things over to Hrvoje. Hrvoje, are you ready?
Yes, I am, Ivan. Thank you for your nice introduction. So before we start, let me just share my screen so we can start with our presentation. Hopefully you can see it now. Let me just set up something last. Okay, so my name is Hrvoje. And I'm a product development lead here at Syskit for Syskit Trace, our documentation toolkit for Microsoft 365. And today I'm going to talk to you a bit about how you can use Syskit Trace to help you with your compliance requirements. So organizations today usually have to deal with a couple of regulations usually. So these we classify them into internal and external compliance requirements. So internal requirements are something that organization decided that they want to follow by themselves. So these are some house rules to which they must comply with. This usually means that some kind of IT department or some higher ups decided that they want to have a couple of rules to know how their environment is set up. External compliance requirements usually come in sense of some certifications that you need, your organization needs to do. So, for example, that's ISO 27001 or a DFARS compliant certification. And what is equally important for all these requirements is that you need to document your environment. So that's the first thing that you need to do. So, for example, in ISO certification, you would need to do an overview of your own environment. So you will need to have a document that is telling how your environment is set up, and then you need to have that. And the similar thing is also for DFARS compliant. And the first thing after you document your whole environment, the first thing that you would like to do is then have a baseline of your environment. And what baseline actually means? It means that you have a configuration that you know that is working correctly. You are satisfied with the security of it, you're satisfied with the performance, and this is something that you declare to be a good. And then, for example, also for the ISO certification, you need to go over it in a specified set of period of time. So usually it's a yearly audit that you need to do, and when you need to check the changes that happened over that year, for example. And that's also important from the perspective of security. So you know that there's a lot of problems with that, but you know that your configuration from the last year was secure because you did extensive testing, and then you can compare changes that you did over 1 year and then see if you maybe misconfigure something or there some new recommendation came out, and then you can do that. And after that checking of your changes, then you maybe want to clarify that this new configuration is your baseline. So this is ongoing living thing to do. And the last thing that you would like to do in these requirements that you have to be compliant with this kind of certification is you need to audit who made the changes. So this is important. For example, if some kind of security breach happens, you would like to know who changed what setting at what point, so you're certain that the things like that is okay. And here I'm gonna today talk a bit about how you can achieve all these things with our Syskit Trace product. So Syskit Trace is a centralized solution for the Microsoft 365 configuration reporting. What it means is that you're gonna be able to see all the different settings that you have in Microsoft 365, so you can in one location. And that's for us that are working inside the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. We know that that can be daunting sometimes. So you have a lot of these different admin portals. You have to log into your Azure Active Directory. You have to log into Azure portal. There's a lot of different screens that you need to see. With Syskit Trace, you can use just one application and you pull all this data really quickly without clicking manually all over, or even writing your own PowerShell scripts. The application is secure in all the data that it collects. It stores within your environment. In this way, you're sure that your data is secure by your own standards. So the Syskit is not storing or collecting any data from your own environment while doing it. It's a simple plug and play solution. You install it with the next, and then you're ready to start. It's important to note that we fully support GCC high DoD and commercial tenants. The application is tested, battle tested in these environments as well, so you don't have to worry about what kind of Azure solution you have. The application works everywhere pretty much the same. So what can you do with Syskit Trace? So the first thing, and the most important, I would say, in this process of achieving your certification or just being sure that you are up to your certification standards, is that you need to document your environment. And the Microsoft 365 environment is a notorious one because it is pretty difficult to document correctly and then to keep that documentation up to date. So a lot of time our users or even our own company sometimes can create some documentation that is good in that point of time, and then 3 months later it's all done. But with Syskit Trace, you can be sure that everything is up to date at that moment when you do, and you can do it continuously without a lot of manpower work involved into it. We currently support a lot of Microsoft 365 services. Some of the big ones that I'm going to show to you later in the demo is Azure Active Directory, SharePoint, Teams, Skype for Business, Exchange, security and compliance, and then we also have a couple of reports for Planner, OneDrive, and the Power Apps. So these are the Microsoft 365 services that we are supporting at this moment. The application itself is easily configurable, so you only pull the data that you really are interested in. So you don't, if you are not interested in, for example, SharePoint, you don't have to pull all the SharePoint data. Then you can pull only Exchange points. So you are free to determine what is important for you. And then we are also heavily we are enabling our users to just define a baseline configuration. We call it a good configuration, and then you can do all these different things that I mentioned that are important for your organization with this baseline configuration in mind. And so once you have this baseline configuration, or when you collected all the data, the next thing that you would like to do is just generate a documentation file for your tenant. And I don't know, usually we talk about different PDF, Word or Excel files that we need to store somewhere or send up to our external or internal auditors, or even send it to our higher ups, our management. And this is the way, this is where the Syskit Trace can help you also a lot. So for all the data that we pull, you can easily generate these different kind of reports in these different kind of file formats. And what is important here to note is that you can customize these files so they match with your organizational branding. And in that way, it seems like some human went over and typed everything else, because these are nice, professional looking files, which I'm going to show you just about now. So the first demo that I'm going to show you today is our gonna be about the foundation of our solution. So as I mentioned, the most important concept that we have in our solution is the snapshot. And snapshot is the snapshot of your configuration on your Microsoft 365 tenant. As you can see in my demo tenant, it takes around 20 to 25 minutes. But in even bigger tenants, it does not go above, I would say, an hour and a half. So you get your data quite quickly. So once you have the snapshot, Then you open it, and then you're gonna end up on the screen like this. So on the left-hand side, I see all these different reports, Microsoft 365 settings and services. In the central part, I see my report, and on the right-hand side, I can see different filters for different reports. As I already mentioned, we are quite pleased with the current services that we support, and I'm going to start with the Exchange Online, because this is the one that we spend the most time perfecting, I would say. We currently have around 50 or so different kind of reports for the Exchange Online. I'm just going to start with some of the most interesting, just to give you an idea of what kind of settings are we collecting in our application. So for example, we are going to go here to the anti-spam settings and going to see how it's set up in my tenant. So I can see I have my default anti-spam policy, but also on my tenant I have a spam filter enhanced. So this is something that is set up in my environment. As you can see, I set it up so that Fabricam is blocked domain. So you can see how everything is configured on your tenant. And this is important, as I'm going to go through all over these different reports, is that you're on the one interface, and then you can just quickly come to a conclusion why somebody from Fabricam, you're not receiving any emails from, let's say, a Fabricam thing. You can also go into, for example, share mailboxes, so you can see all the share mailboxes inside of your tenant. You can also see how your mobile device policies are for the Exchange Online, and then you also have a lot of different. So, for example, in my mailbox settings, I'm going to see how my mailboxes are set up for every user on my tenant. And then what is always interesting are these organizational sharing policies, so you can see how your organization and with whom you can share your stuff. For example, in this case, who can I share my calendar with, from which domain names. So you can see it's set it up here. So as you can see, and there's, I don't know, 40 more different reports on this. So I would say we support Exchange Online quite good. The next one that I want to show you is SharePoint. And we're going to start off, of course, with the SharePoint sites as the most interesting resource there is. So the most important thing when you're coming from the compliance requirements, for example, would definitely be how is your sharing setup on your sites, because that's something that is really important for you to know. So, for example, if I go here to my sites and I'm going to just have here sharing capability, I'm going to be able to see how my sites are configured. And in that way, if I have, for example, my financial, my human resources, maybe they have to be locked down and have to have their sharing disabled, but some kind of product sites or similar sites like that have to, which are more like collaboration with the external partners, they have to have external sharing and guest sharing open. So in that way, you can quickly see how your sites are set up. As you can see, this goes a lot to the right. There is a lot of these different settings that we are pulling for the sites, and that you can be sure that you are on top of your sites in SharePoint, and that you are completely sure that everything is working correctly. And then, of course, later on we're going to see how we can track this over time. But we're also going to stick with this sharing theme for SharePoint as well. Here you can see how your tenant level sharings are completed. You're going to notice as I go over my resources forward that we're mostly focused on what we call tenant level settings. So, and this is also something sometimes that is really important for your compliance. For example, for security reasons, you want to see how your environment is set up, and you have to be sure that is type-proof as it can be. So we do not go too much into content itself. We also go to the sites level and teams level, and that's about it what the application will show you. But you get a lot of these different configuration options here. So I show you this sharing, and then you also have hub sites and just a basic idea of how your tenant is configured. If we jump back to the teams, we're going to see the same thing. So here we have all the teams that we have in my organization, and then I get this idea of how it is set up. So all these different configuration options, who the owners are, and the idea the same. So you get an idea that we collect a lot of these different data for SharePoint and Teams. Also, what I want to show you here is the security and compliance part of the Exchange Online. I would say it's part of that service as well. Retention and sensitivity labels, which are really important to have. So you can also see what kind of retention and sensitivity labels you have defined for your tenant, and also you can see where are they applied, who applied them, and where. So you get an idea on these labels. So as we can see here, some of the properties of these labels as well. And the last thing, and this is are just starting with the Azure Active Directory. So we currently support, I would say, these 4 different kind of reports. So for all the Azure AD application registered to this Azure tenant, then you also get group lifecycle policy, group naming policies, and also these different groups. And this is only our start in this, and we are going to expand on this in the future, because Azure Active Directory is also one of these important things to have for your compliance cases, to be sure that everything is set up as securely as possible. So this is something that we are going to see in the future. And the last thing that I wanted to show you about this is also here the planner. So the planner has only the plans and tasks, and this is more into this data, and this is maybe something that is not maybe that interesting for you if you're looking to do it for compliance reasons. So this is the data that we collected, and you can see there is a lot of it. So what the next thing you would like to do is generate these nice looking reports. So as you can see, we have around 133 different reports currently in the application, and that's expanding, I would say, daily, if not monthly. So I'm just going to use my all template tool to generate an Excel document that's going to show me all this data for me. So I'm just going to click save, and I'm going to open it. We support, as I mentioned before, 3 different file formats, so Excel, Word, or PDF. And then we're going to see it. As you can see, it's done quite quickly, and then you get this nice looking Word. So everything that you see here can be branded to your own organization, so you can so it can look and feel like a real life document, not something that the application generated. So if I go here to applications, I can see all different applications on my tenant, and then I get I can go back to tables and see all these different things. Let's just jump into something that we saw in the application just to be sure. So anti-spam settings, we can see how it looks. So it's a nice looking Excel table that you can then use to send it to your management, or just store it somewhere if you wanted to have it like that. So this is how you would generate this data. Second thing that you can do, and this is more of giving access to these settings to somebody who does not necessarily have it, is that you can export. So if I'm going to go here to my group naming policies, for example, and I can export it to PDF. I'm just going to click save, and it's going to open. You can just export one different report, and then use that to send it to somebody who wants to see how that setting was set up. So as we can see here, it's going to give me a date when this snapshot was taken and what were the values. So you can do that for every report that we have in the application, and you can also use 3 different kind of file formats. So basically, this is the first thing that you would do when you're preparing yourself either for the first time requirement for your certification or for internal rules, or something that you would do before the internal or external auditors come to you. You would take a snapshot or take a peek at what your Microsoft 365 configuration looks like. So let me just jump back into my presentation, and then we can see what we are going to do with this data later on. So the first thing, when you have this baseline configuration, you're going to give that to your auditors. They're going to go over it and going to say everything is fine, and maybe not everything is fine. Then you're going to change it. Then you're going to declare a new baseline compare. And then the next year, when somebody comes, or when you are reviewing your year, because it's the end of the year here, but that's what we usually do at this time of the year, then you would like to see what changed over the year. And this is where the Syskit Trace can help you immensely, because it comes with a highly capable compare wizard which will allow you to compare all these different settings that I showed you over time, so you can be sure what's changed and when, so you're sure what's going on. It's a highly customizable compare wizard, so you can compare only data that you're interested in. You can exclude something that is maybe not of that much interest to you, so you can just pinpoint it and have it just the way you like it. And then you can also generate this changes report, because Syskit Trace is a documentation tool at the end, and then you can generate a nice looking Excel documents that you can either save and send it to your auditors, or save it and have it as a documentation part of your documentation. And then when we have this powerful compare wizard capabilities, the next thing that you would like to do is receive alerts when we detect that something has changed. And that is something that you can do with our application at this moment. So you can schedule for your data to be collected on a schedule. So it's collected, for example, here on my screenshot, you can see, and I'm going to show it in application later. You can set it up to be whatever you prefer. So you can set it up even daily or every weekday, or you want to maybe set it up to collect all this data on Sunday evening. So when you come on in the morning, you have all the data ready for you to review. And with this, as we are doing this continuously, you can set it up to send you notifications when something changes on your tenant. And this is basically alerting you when some change occur. And then you can just review it and see in this document that I'm going to show you later, if this is some change that is important for you, if it's maybe something that you need to act upon, or is something that you can ignore for now and just move on with your life. What I did not mention before, but it's really important when we're talking about comparing tenants and schedule data collection, is that you can Syskit Trace is a multi-tenant application by default, so you can connect multiple tenants to it. So, for example, the best use case here would be quality assurance tenants, QA, development tenants, and production tenants. You can connect them to the same application, and then you can do powerful thing like cross-compare different settings to be sure that everything is working correctly, and that the features that are working on the development tenant are working in the production. So, and then you can also set up this data collection schedule to be representative of that. Maybe you don't want to have everyday snapshot of your development environment as it changes rapidly, but you want to have it for the production, so you're sure that nothing changed. So this is something that you're able to do with our tool. So, and let's now see how that actually will look like. So here we are back in our Syskit Trace application, and if I just jump back here to snapshots, I can see here that I have two different modes of taking a snapshot. So I have manual, so if I click here, take snapshot, and just click next, the application itself is going to take a snapshot. But I have also something called automatic snapshots, and you can see it always happens at 17 hour or 5 hour in the afternoon for me, and it's taking a snapshot. So it's always taking a snapshot after day's work to make sure that everything is working correctly. So this is the way that you can set up this. And then we also have here this mark is good column, and I'm gonna talk a bit to you about this after. But for now, let's just mark this configuration from yesterday as a good configuration. So I marked it as a good, and it's now a good configuration. This good configuration can also be my baseline configuration. That's something to have. So if I go here to my compare wizard, I'm going to be offered with two different and distinct possibilities. The first one is I can compare my tenant over time, so I can compare it to my previous snapshot, or I can compare two different tenants between themselves. So it's important here to note that this best works in a tenant that are really close one to another. So for example, prod and development tenants are something that is usually you want to compare. And here, maybe the best example would be anti-phishing and anti-spam settings that may be different on each tenant, and then some developer develops something and it's not working in production, and then you find out that you have different settings. And this is something that can help you with these kind of problems. So let's see how it works. So I'm just gonna here use my compare tenant with previous snapshot. I'm going to take my latest snapshot from today, and I'm going to compare it with a snapshot from yesterday, and let's see what I changed today in my tenant, and we're going to see that there are some changes here. So as I mentioned here, this usually takes a couple of minutes, but the data. And the last thing I want to say about the cross-tenant compare is that you can compare, for example, users one with another, but we usually do not recommend that. So in the other case, you would see different kind of options to let you ignore users, and that you get a good idea. So, for example, let's see here what changed. So my group settings changed. So I can see I enabled it today, but if I go here to my security and compliance and into my so for example, let's go to Exchange Online. And if I go to my anti-spam policies, I can see that I added my enhance filter today, and it's going to tell me that it was added. I'm going to see my mailbox settings also changed, and my organizational settings were changed. So I can see how the changes occur, and I can act upon it if I like. So for example, and this is always nice to show here, if I go back to my SharePoint, I can also see my user profile properties changed. And this is something that I can that may be important for me, but usually is not. And then this is where I can configure my compare wizard to behave the way I like it. So I do not need to use and to compare everything always. I can set up different kind of reports. For example, in this case, what I would usually do is I would just ignore these two properties because they change daily, and this is not something that is of that importance to me. And then I can save it, and from there on, the Syskit Trace is going to only compare these tenants. And then also something important here to note is this setting here. So it's by default is a last good configuration, and this is basically telling Syskit Trace either to operate with the assumption that the previous snapshot is a good one, or with the assumption that user defined a good configuration or a baseline configuration. And then in that sense, when I click here last good configuration, it's going to compare with that my baseline configuration, my configuration that I provided my auditors with, and I always know what changed from that time, and I can act upon it if I wish. So I'm going to just click here save, and then it's going to do the comparison once again. And if I go here back to my SharePoint part, I'm going to see that my property bags and user profile properties are not here, but policies are still there. So this is the way it worked. As always with our tool, you can also save these differences. I'm just going to open my tenant here, and I'm going to show it to you. This is faster than comparison itself, and I get a nice looking Excel file that's telling me of all my different changes. So for example, here in users, I can see that I've gotten a new user. So this is basically just a shared mailbox, but I can see it. I can see all my policies that were changed, and this is also something that I can maybe give out to my. So here for intention, I can give my higher ups to see what's changed. And this is something that you can also receive on the mail. So if I go back here to my configuration wizard for this tenant, and I get to the same screen that I showed you on the presentation, I can set it up here for my data collection schedule, just to show you different kind of options that we have here. So for example, you can set it up to work just the way you like. But the most, I would say, interesting part is found here in notification settings, where you can send only if differences were detected. So you're going to be notified only if some changes were happened on your tenants. And then you can also determine what do you want application to send you. So we can send you only the differences file, or we can send you the whole file, so you can see the idea of what's happening. And then you can also use multiple email addresses to make sure that everybody who's responsible for your Office Microsoft 365 is receiving these. So yeah, so basically this is what you can do, and where you can enable these different alerts, and how you can use our comparison wizard to get this into you. So here, so this is what we currently have in our application, and this is a fairly new application in our toolbelt. So it's been around from the April of this year. So we are building it as we go. So the things that we are envision for 2021 is inclusion of Microsoft Intune, and then also Azure Active Directory conditional access policies, and just in general expanding on Azure Active Directory properties, because in this way these are some of the I would say, areas where our customers required asked for it, and then we also saw it as something that is very important for the compliance cases. So usually auditors want to know how your Intune services are set up, Intune devices, and how your conditional access policies are set up. So now, and also because we have this built-in engine where we can show you this data and we collect everything, what's in our mind is doing something what we call best practice analyzer. So as I don't know if any of you know about SPDocket, our on-premise tool, which has a powerful best practice analyzer built into it. This is something that we are looking into adding into this tool in 2021. And then also we are really interested in hearing from current customer and potential customers. So we have this feedback portal where you can just ask for any feature, and we're going to try to communicate with you and try to find something that is working for both of us. So we are looking into just expanding on the different settings that you're going to be able to see in the application, and then do all these powerful things with them. So in conclusion, and just to go back to our first slide that I showed you, of what you need to do to get certified, for example, for ISO or DFARS, you're going to have to start with documenting your environment. So, for example, if you're working to Microsoft 365, that would be Microsoft 365 tenant. And then this is somewhere where the Trace is going to help you with generating these documentation files. And that's going to save you a lot of time of manual clicking or developing your own PowerShell scripts, which are working one day and not working the other. You're going to be able to define your baseline configuration. So you're going to be able to go in a point in time where you say, this is my good configuration. This is something that I can give to my auditors, and then they can review it, and then we can go and build upon that document. And you can have that document always up to date by using Trace, so you are never out of sync with your auditor. So when the time comes when you need to give this documentation to your auditors, you're pretty sure that is already up to date and you have everything ready. So, and this is also maybe not important for your auditors, but you can also track your configuration drift over time. So this is something that happens a lot of times when something was working yesterday and it's not working 3 months later on. Syskit Trace is there to help you with that as well, because if you set your automatic schedules, automatic data collection to happen every week, then you're up to date with what's happening inside of your tenant. So just to complete it, you can use Syskit Trace as a good help to help you and to sleep better at night when regards with compliance requirements and your configuration drift. So that would be all from this setup part of our presentation. So I'm just gonna give it up for the Q&A session and to see if you asked any questions.
So thank you, Hrvoje, for the awesome presentation here. It was really a pleasure seeing all there is. Now it's time for a Q&A session. Feel free to ask any questions using the Q&A function on the top right. So let's check some of the questions we have right now. So one of the questions, Hrvoje, you can help with that. Can I receive an alert on the change?
Yes. I showed that already. So you can use our automatic data collection. You can set up different emails to receive the alert, to receive a mail when change occurs. So yes, you can definitely do that with our application.
Okay. The other question is the items coming in 2021. How are these to be distributed in this separate purchase or an update?
So they're definitely going to be an update. So the application is going to include them. When we develop them, they're going to be a part of the application.
Okay, and we have a few other questions. So what permissions are required on the tenant?
During this setup of the application itself, you're going to need to have a global administrator account. But in the background, we are using what's called application permissions. So you're just going to need to give our Syskit Trace application permissions to work. So we have it on our documentation portal on the internet. You can see what kind of permissions our application requires. So it's mostly read permissions on all these resources that I've showed.
Okay. One other question is also, Hrvoje, do I have to buy licenses for every user in a development, test, and production tenant?
So yes. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And for more information about all sales-related question, I would urge you to contact us at sales@syskit.com, and we will be happy to talk about those kind of questions further. So one other question. So Hrvoje, do you support any migration scenarios?
So basically what I showed there, the best way to do some kind of migration scenario would be to use it on 2 different tenants, and then you're gonna pull the data from one tenant and then do a snapshot of another tenant, and you can use our cross-tenant compare and to see if everything is working correctly. So this is the way that maybe you can do a tenant-to-tenant migration, and you're sure that everything is working correctly, but there is no, for example, from on-prem to online migration scenarios, I would say.
Okay. And also just one other, so can you back up the settings?
So in a sense, the documentation itself is some kind of a backup, but you can also use every snapshot that we take with our tool also does the Microsoft 365 DSC configuration. So it's a PowerShell module, and then you can use it. Then you can use our tool to export that configuration, and then use that PowerShell module to, for example, reapply these settings. So in a way, every snapshot that we take with our application can serve as some kind of a backup, because you can reapply these settings to your tenant.
Okay. So I guess that's it for the Q&A session, guys. So once again, thank you all for joining. As mentioned, everyone who registered for this event will receive a recording of the session within a few days. And if you have any further questions regarding Syskit Trace or any of our other products, please reach out to our email, sales@syskit.com, and we will be happy to talk to you there. So it was a pleasure having you all here. See you next time. Bye.